Hello dear students, I hope you are doing well. Today we are going to start the part number 3 of our lecture number 1. So the topic that we are going to discuss is disadvantages of file processing systems. These file processing systems were used before the introduction of database based applications, and they were used for the same purpose, that is to deal with data and information. But there were certain disadvantages associated with these file processing systems. Unlike database systems, there was no centralized controlling agent like we have the database management system today. So the programmers who were writing the software systems, who were writing the file processing systems, they had to write the software systems as well as the underlying data layer, the underlying routines for writing the data to the physical storage. So there were some certain disadvantages associated with those file processing systems. So let us discuss those disadvantages one by one. The first disadvantage associated with the file processing system was program and data dependence. If you remember, we discussed in our previous lecture while we were discussing the basic concepts that in information systems there are two separate concerns, and based upon these two separate concerns we have two different layers. We have to divide the overall database system or the information system in two different layers, and they are the application layer and the data layer. And this is only possible when we have the mechanism of defining these two layers separately. But in the file processing systems, there was no mechanism of designing and developing and defining these two layers separately. So these two layers, they were developed as if they are a single thing. So because of these two layers, they used to be intermingled. So because of this thing, the program and the data, they were dependent on each other, or we can say that the application layer and the data layer, they were dependent on each other. And because of this dependence, we had to face a lack of hurdles in maintaining those file processing systems. So the second disadvantage was duplication of data, because there was limited data storage or limited data sharing, and we did not have any centralized controlling agent. So because of this, there was a duplication of data. Duplication of data means that we had to define, or we have to keep separate multiple representations of same objects or events, because we can visualize one unit of data as one representation of one object, but in the file processing systems, there were incidents where we had to keep more than one representations of one object. So that is basically duplication of data, and that was there in the file processing systems. Another disadvantage was limited data sharing. Okay, so limited data sharing means that with the help of computer networks, we were able to share the data as files, but there was no systematic mechanism of utilizing that data by the applications. And definitely the development times were lengthy, because the programmers, they had to keep track of how to physically write the data on the physical storage. So it was also their responsibility to define the file formats. So because of that, extra development times were required. And finally, we have to excessively maintain the programs, and normally 80% of the information system development budget was spent on the maintenance of these file processing systems because of the issues that we have just discussed. So because of the data dependency, the program and the data dependency, which was the first disadvantage of the file processing systems, we had to face some problems, and those problems were that each and every programmer had to maintain their own data, and secondly, whenever an application program was the programmer was tasked to write a program, he had to include the code for metadata for each and every file. And similarly, the programmer whose actual task was to write the application layer, who was supposed to write the application layer, he had to define his own routines for reading, inserting, updating, and deleting data. And finally, there was lack of coordination and central control, because there was no centralized agent that can take care of the sharing of data and to provide the controlled access on that data. So that there was lack of coordination and there was lack of central control. And secondly, there was a problem of non-standard file formats, because everybody was defining their own file formats and using them. So there was no standard file format that everybody has to define their own non-standard file formats. So here is an example of the old file processing system at Pine Valley Furniture Company. This slide, and I have also previously mentioned that the most of the content in the slides have been taken from the Hoffer's books and slides. So this is also taken from the Hoffer's book. So in this example, you can see that there are 3 different software systems, and there are some programs which are associated with these systems. And you can see that there is duplication of data. You can see that this customer master file is here, and this customer master file is in the invoicing system as well. So you can see that the file is here and the same file is here. So this is basically duplication of data. So the next problem, there are some problems which are associated with data redundancy as well. Redundancy is the duplication that we have just discussed. One of the problems is wastage of space. Okay, so we are basically, because we are maintaining multiple copies of the same data, so basically we are wasting space. And definitely there are more maintenance headaches, because in order to keep all of the copies similar, we have to maintain the copies each and every time there is, for example, there is an update, we have to perform that update on all of the copies. So there is more maintenance headache. And another biggest problem associated with the duplication of data is that we have to take care of inconsistency. And definitely inconsistency is basically related with data integrity. Okay, so whenever the consistency of a database is broken, the database integrity or the data integrity is broken. So in order to understand this concept, let's try to understand this with the help of an example. So for example, there is an object which is A. This object is, for example, an actual object, and we have to represent this object as data, which is basically we have to represent it this object as stored representation. So for example, this is data. Okay, for example, this A is data and this A is data. Okay, let's assume that this A is the actual object, and these two A's, these are basically the stored representations of that A. So basically this, because we have 2 copies or we have 2 representations of the same object, so this is duplication of data. So first thing, or the first problem, is that we had to maintain these 2 copies. So there was no mechanism of ensuring that only 1 copy would be maintained. So because of that, we had to keep 2 different copies. So whenever there is for any reason, whenever there is a difference between these 2 copies, so let's assume for any reason this A becomes A dash and this A remained A. So whenever there is a difference between these 2 copies, at any point of time, a system can assume or can get that these two are 2 different objects. So this basically is inconsistency. The consistency has been broken, the integrity has been broken, and this is a very serious issue, because if the consistency of data is broken, all of the decisions whose support we want to take from the database system or the information system, those decisions can be incorrect, because they would be based upon some incorrect data. So this is a very, very serious threat to the actual objectives that we want to achieve using an information system. So database approach was introduced as the solution to all of the problems which are there in the file processing system, which were there in the file processing systems. So basically in the database approach, we have a central repository of shared data, and all of the data is managed by a controlling agent. We store the data in a standardized and convenient form, and we require a database management system in order to have all these features. So a database management system works like this, as you can see in this figure, that between the data and the software systems or the programs, there is this database management system. So this database management system basically is a software, and this software basically works as an intermediating agent or a mediating layer between the programs and the data. So all of the interactions that a program has to do with the data, all of the interactions, they have to be done through the database management system, and this is a must in a database system. So this software is used to create, maintain, and provide controlled access to our databases, and it is the responsibility of database management system to manage the data resources like an operating system manages the computing resources. So this is another example that all of the users who basically want to use the data through their application programs, they have to come through the database management system. So database management system has to be there. So we have different database management systems available to us in the market today. Some of them are open source, some are proprietary, some are open access, like Oracle, IBM DB2, Microsoft SQL Server, Teradata, MySQL, and so on. So all of these, they are the database management systems. So it depends on our requirements that which particular database management system we use to be used in our information system. Okay, now we are going to discuss some of the advantages of the database approach. Program and data, they are independent, okay, because now the data layer is to be developed using the database management system, and the application is to be developed in a separate tool and language, so they are totally independent of each other. There is planned data redundancy. There would be still some duplication, but that duplication would be planned duplication, and definitely the database management system can be used to take care of that duplication in order to prevent the threat to integrity and the inconsistencies. And at this point, improved data consistency. So I have already discussed that there is improved data consistency because we have got so many features in our database management systems. Using the database management systems, the consistency has been improved. Also, the data sharing has been improved because now we have the centralized controlling agent that can be used to provide controlled access to the data. So the sharing has been improved. Application development time productivity has increased because now the programmer has to focus on the development of the application layer only. Standards can be enforced. Any standard can be enforced because we are following a standard methodology, and we will be following the standard tools. So standards can be enforced now. The data quality has also been improved because of all of these things, and also the accessibility and responsiveness has been improved because now the data would be stored in a convenient way using the database management system, and the collection would be more organized. Maintenance also has been reduced because of the program and data independence. We have achieved the reduced program maintenance. And finally, the decision support is improved because now